Good day. Today we're going to deal with analytical geometry. So we're going to deal with a question paper, November 2022. So it says that in the diagram, these 3 points are vertices of triangle ABC. So you are given these 3 points as vertices of this particular triangle. So that's telling you that those are vertices of that triangle. Then they say that T is the midpoint of CB. So T is the midpoint of this line. And then from there they say that the equation of line AC is this stuff. So you are given the equation of this line. And you're told that the angle of inclination of AB is A. So they're talking about this angle of inclination. So you're given the angle of inclination of this line. So you're given that is A. Then they said triangle DCT is drawn such that CD is parallel to BA. So they're saying that this triangle is drawn such that this is parallel to this. So they're saying that this triangle is drawn in such a way that this is parallel to this. So they say that the lines AC and DC intersect at S. So they're talking about this being the point of intersection of these two lines. So they're saying the lines AC and DC intersect at S, the y-intercept of AC. So that's also telling you that it's the y-intercept. So they're giving you clues here. So when they tell you it's the y-intercept, already you know that x is 0. So they're more likely to ask you to write down this coordinate. It happens a lot. So then they said the y. So they said it's y-intercept of AC. Then they said P, F, and R are x-intercept of DC, AC, and AB respectively. So they're just telling you that 1, 2, 3 are x-intercepts of each of these lines. So let's proceed to answering the questions. So now they said calculate the gradient of AB. So the gradient of AB. So where is AB? So this is AB. So they ask you to calculate the gradient. So we know that the gradient of a line is the steepness of a line. So if the gradient is positive, the line is increasing. So if the gradient is positive, the line is increasing. So from left to right, if you follow the graph using your fingers, it's going up. So meaning that it's increasing. But if the gradient is negative, the line is decreasing. So for instance, if you have gradient that's maybe -2, we know that the line is decreasing. So when you follow the line using your fingers from left to right, it's going down. So I'm just touching the basics. So the gradient of the graph is the steepness of the graph. So just by looking at this stuff, we already know that our gradient is supposed to be negative. It's good to reason with your answer so that you know that whether it's correct or if you have made a mistake. So we know that the gradient is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we can choose this as our x1 and y1, and this one as our x2 and y2. So let me just do that. So then it means it's gonna be -4 minus 2 all over 6 minus 4. So -4 minus 2 is -6, and then 6 minus 4 is 2. So then we're gonna have this stuff which will end up giving us -3. So just as we have predicted, our gradient is -3. So this is how we know we're correct. So our gradient is -3. So the gradient of AB is -3. So we already have the first answer. So this is equals to -3. Then they ask you for the size of angle A. So they did it on purpose. They wanted us to calculate this so that we can end up using that to calculate that. Because for us to calculate the angle of inclination, notice the angle of inclination is strictly the angle between the positive x-axis and the line. So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that if it is on the left side, it is not the angle of inclination. So sometimes they are indirectly telling you that something is the angle of inclination. For instance, they can say the angle of inclination, or rather they can say the angle between CD and the positive x-axis is 135. This is just an example. So if they tell you that the angle between CD and the positive x-axis is 135, they're just telling you that the angle on the right side is 135. How come positive axis because the weird part about it is that this is the negative x-axis. So what do they mean? They're saying the angle between this line and the positive x-axis. But just to cut it short, they're just trying to tell you that it's on the right side. So they're indirectly telling you that it's the angle of inclination. So when you see them saying the angle between a line and a positive x-axis, they're telling you it's the angle of inclination. So even if it's on the negative side of the x-axis, they're just talking about the angle between this and the positive x-axis. If we stretch it, it will form this angle. So that's what I mean. So now this is the angle of inclination, the one that is on the right side. What about if they're asking you the one that is on the left side? Then you would have to subtract from 180. Then you would end up getting this angle, because this formula m is equals to tan theta is for the angle of inclination, which is on the right side. So we want to find a, so it's going to be tan a. So we found the gradient, we know it's going to be -3 is equals to tan a. So in order to get a, we just have to, in order to make a the subject of the formula, rather, we have to use inverse tan. So then we're going to say a is equals to inverse tan -3. And let's find out what does that give us. So it gives us -71,565 ... But what do we do when we have a negative angle? So when you have a negative angle, you just have to add 180. So when you add 180, notice you've got a negative acute angle. When you add 180, you'll get an obtuse angle. So let's add 180. So if you add 180, you will get 108,43. So therefore a will be 108,43. So we have it right here. So 108,43. So that is the angle. So far we've answered this 108,43. Just before I continue, if you want to be tutored, whether it is online or physically, whether it is the situation where you're struggling in maths, or whether it is the situation where you're good in maths but want perfection, take a screenshot or save these details. Whether you're studying Cambridge, which is the UK curriculum, or whether you're studying NSC, which is the South African curriculum, or IEB, or native courses which start from N1 to N6, or any curriculum you're doing no matter which country you're at, we offer tutorials. We've got lessons and practice sessions 5 days a week. We also give you tests once a week so that we can check your improvements. Now let's deal with the following question. They said calculate the coordinates of t. So they're asking for t. Now notice, they just told you in this scenario, they told you that t is the midpoint of CB. But even if they did not tell you that, just by seeing these indications that these two sides are equal, it already tells you that this is the midpoint. So there are 3 levels of calculating the midpoint. You have to be careful. This one is just the basics. So when I deal with another question, you'll get to see the other levels. So this one is just the basic level. We know that when we want to find the midpoint, it's just simply midpoint. We write it just like coordinate form. So it's just like writing maybe a, for instance. Let me just rewrite it. So it's just like writing a is to 0. This is just an example. So midpoint will just say x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and then y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So from here we're gonna say -2 plus 6. So it's gonna be -2 plus 6 divided by 2. So that's the midpoint. And then the y value is gonna be -3 minus 4. So -3 minus 4. -3 minus 4 divided by 2. So from here we're going to end up having -2 plus 6 is actually 4. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then this time we're going to have -3 minus 4, which is -7, -7 over 2. So literally that's what we have. So that is the value of the midpoint. So we have to answer the question. They said find t. So we'll tell them t is this stuff. So we found t. So t is just 2 is to -7 over 2. Let's check if it makes sense. Let's check if the position makes sense. So Yep, it's on the positive x-axis, so 2 is correct. And then we're going to have negative 7 over 2. So negative 7 over 2, if you check in the calculator, it's going to be negative 3.5. So 3.5 is between negative 3 and negative 4. So it is correct. Just before you do this example, if you're interested in knowing the prices of the tutorials, the video that contains the prices and the updated contact details, just in case these ones have changed, is found at the end of this video. Alright, let's answer the following question. So they said calculate the coordinates of S. So they said calculate the coordinates of S. So where is S? S is this part. Now, every time they ask you to find a point, you have to ask what is special about the point. Number one, the thing that is special about it is that it's a point of intersection. So usually we could even find this equation and this equation and equate them and solve. But the point of intersection is usually the long cut. So every time it's a point of intersection, check if there is another thing first. Check if there is something easier than point of intersection. So sometimes we actually do not have the equation of one of them. So if they ask you for S, and you say that it's a point of intersection, you have to check if there is another thing that is special. Well, in this case, there is another thing that is special. They have already told us that it's the y-intercept. So they said, where is that? They said that the lines AC and DC intersect at S, the y-intercept of AC. But even without reading it, you can see that it's on the y-intercept. This also happens in functions. They can just say find, for instance, r, and then you would notice that it is on the x-axis, so it's the x-intercept. So here's the y-intercept, so we already know that x is 0. And they also gave us this equation. So because we do not have this one, we could also use this one if we had, but unfortunately we do not have the equation of this line, but we have the equation of this line. So we can use the equation. So they told us the equation of line AC is this stuff. So sometimes it's written in the form of y is equals to mx plus c. Sometimes they write it in the form of ax plus by is equals to c. So these are two forms of the straight line graph. So in this case, they gave us the second version. So we know that the y-intercept x is 0, so we have to substitute 0. So then it's going to be 5 into 0, because the equation is, if you want, you can even make y the subject of the formula first, so that you can make it y is equals to mx plus c. But in this case, I'm just going to substitute. So let me just write it properly. So we know that y-intercept x is equals to 0. So we're going to substitute 0 in place of x. Then there's going to be 6y equals to 8. And then from here, we're going to have 0 is going to cause this stuff to disappear. So we're going to have negative 6y is equals to 8. Therefore, when we divide both sides, we're going to end up having y is equals to negative, because we're going to divide both sides by negative. So we're going to end up having y is equals to negative 4 over 3. Yep, it should be negative 4 over 3. So therefore, the coordinates of S is negative 4 over, okay, 0 is to negative 4 over 3. So let me just write it a little bit better. So 4 over 3. So 0 is to 4 over 3. So that's what we have. So we have answered this question. So we have got 0 is to negative 4 over 3. So the next question says determine the equation of CD in the form of y is equals to mx plus c. So the equation of CD. So they're asking for this equation. Now for you to find the equation, but let me just erase this stuff first. Let me just erase this stuff so that it does not get in the way of any calculation. So they ask you for the equation of CD. Now, every time we want to find the equation, we just need the gradient and a point so that we can substitute and have y is equals to mx plus c. But we've got a slight problem. Usually for us to find the gradient, we use 2 points. So we would need this point or even this point so that we can find the gradient. And then we could use either one of them in the equation. So as long as it's on the line, we can use any point on the line and substitute in the equation. But we only have one coordinate. So what do we do? Every time you've got one coordinate and you want to find the gradient, there are other ways to find the gradient. Using 2 points is not the only way of finding the gradient. The other way to find the gradient is if it is parallel to another line or if it is perpendicular to another line. So if it is parallel to another line, you already know that the gradient of this one is the same as the gradient of this one. What about if it was perpendicular? So if it was perpendicular, you would have, let's just say it was perpendicular to this one. So if this one has a gradient of, let's just say negative half. So okay, let me just fix this stuff. So if this one had a gradient of negative half, let's say m of this one was equals to negative half, and you want to find the gradient of this one. So notice every time two lines are perpendicular, the gradient of one line times the gradient of the other line is equals to -1. So what you would do to find the other gradient is that let's call this the gradient of the first one, or if you want, you can just call it the gradient of CD. So you can say m of CD times, so instead of writing it this way, you can even write the gradient of CD times the gradient of this stuff. So this stuff is CB, so times the gradient of CB is equals to -1. Then from there, we are looking for the gradient of CD, but we have the gradient of CB. So then we're going to say times -1/2 is equals to -1. And when you divide both sides by -1/2, you would literally get the gradient of CD is equals to, so you get the gradient of CD is equals to 2. So that's what you would do. So the other way of finding the gradient is to check if it is parallel to another line or if it is perpendicular to another line. So that is also not the only way of finding the gradient. For instance, they could have actually asked us, okay, let me just erase this stuff first. So alright, let's just say we were given an angle here as 135, and we want to find the gradient of this line so that we can find the equation. So if this was the question, we would just use m is equals to tan theta, and then from there we would use m is equals to tan 135, and it will give you -1 as the answer. So in this case, we have the gradient. So the gradient is -1. So it means we found the gradient, -1. Then we'll just substitute this point. So we'll have the formula y is equals to mx plus c. We can now substitute this point. So when we have the gradient and the point, we can find the equation. So for now, in this case, this is the situation where this line is parallel to this line. So how do we find the gradient? Well, to find the gradient, we'll just simply say the gradient of CD is the same as the gradient of AB. And you'll tell them the reason why you're saying this is the same. You are saying it's the same because AB is parallel to CD. So that's why they've got the same gradient. So you have to make this statement and you have to tell them this stuff. So they have equal gradients. So we have already found the gradient of AB. We have already found it. So what was the gradient of AB? So the gradient of AB was -3. So it means the gradient of CD will also be -3. So you just tell them, okay, you will just tell them that therefore the gradient of CD is -3. So it is that simple. You tell them that the gradient of CD is -3. So we have found the gradient of CD. Now we need to find the equation. So let me just erase this stuff. Okay, so let's find the equation. So you can use either one of the two formulas. You can use mx plus c, or you can use y minus y1. So y minus y1 is equals to m into x minus x1. So here we're gonna say y, so we have to substitute. So in place of y1 and x1, we have to substitute any point that is on the line. In this case, we have got this point that is on this line. So in place of x1 and y1, we substitute the points, but we leave y and x. So it means we're gonna say y minus. So the y value here is -3. So it's gonna be -3, then it's gonna be minus. We already found the gradient, which was the same as this gradient. So it was -3. Then we're gonna have x, then minus. So the x value is -2, so we're going to have -2, and then from here we're going to have y plus 3 is equals to -3x plus 2, and then from there we're going to have y plus 3, then this is going to be -3x minus 6, and then when we take that 3 to the other side we're going to have -3x, so we're going to have -6 minus 3, -6 minus 3 is -9. So let's just check if it's correct. So if you substitute -2, will it give us -3? Alright, so if we substitute -2, will it give us -3? We're going to have y is equals to -3 into -2 minus 9. So y is equals to, this is going to be 6 minus 9. Yeah, and indeed 6 minus 9 is -3. So that's how we know we're correct. It's always good to test your answers. So when you test your answers, you know for sure the marks that you have. So that's what we have. So it's -9, so -3x minus 9. So we found it. So y is equals to -3x minus 9. So we wrote it in a form of mx plus c. Alright, let's answer the next question. But just before we answer the next question, let me just erase what is unnecessary so far. So this is what we have. Yep. Okay, so let me just, okay, yep. Alright, so now here it says, the next question says calculate the size of DCA. So the next question says calculate the size of DCA. So where is DCA? So D, C, and A. So they're asking for this angle, and to find that, it is really not difficult. Trust me, it's very easy. It might look difficult, but it is very easy. All you have to do is, whenever they ask for this angle, you have to ask yourself which two lines make that angle, because an angle is how far two lines are stretched apart. So which two lines make the angle? The two lines that make the angle is CD and AC. So CD and AC, or if you want, you can call it CA. So these two lines make the angle. So when you have discovered the two lines that make this angle, all you have to do is to find the angle of inclination of both of them and subtract the smaller one from the bigger one. It's very easy. So let's find the angle of inclination of this one first. So we know that to find the angle of inclination, we use the formula m is equals to tan theta. So it means the gradient of AC is equals to tan theta. So we have to get the gradient of AC. So yep, we have to literally do the process. So then it's gonna be the gradient of AC is equals to y2. So I'm not gonna write the formula, but you should write the formula. So it's gonna be, I'm gonna call this y2. So it's gonna be -3 minus 2 over, this is gonna be x2, since I called this one y2. -2 minus 4, then -3 minus 2 is actually -5, and then -2 minus 4 is -6. So it means the answer is 5 over 6, and we know it's correct because the gradient is positive and the line is increasing. So we have it as -5 over 6, not -5 over 6 rather, but positive 5 over 6. So it means that it's gonna be 5 over 6 is equals to tan theta. So to find theta, we're just gonna use arctan, so, or inverse tan, arctan 5 over 6. So let's figure out what does this give us. So this will give us 39.8055 ... So we found the angle of inclination of this part. Now we have to find the angle of inclination of this, and we already can see that it's going to be an obtuse angle. We know that it's going to be negative, and we're going to have to add 180. Alright, if you don't understand what I just said, don't mind it for now. It won't really matter in this case. So let's find the angle of inclination of the other one. So we already know the gradient of this stuff. We know the gradient. So the gradient was -3, and if you use the same formula, m is equals to, so if you say m is equals to tan theta, it's going to be -3 is equals to tan theta, and it's going to give us the same answer as this stuff because they are parallel. So parallel lines have got the same angle of inclination. So if you press arctan -3, arctan -3, it's gonna give us a negative angle, and we'll have to add 180. When we add 180, we're gonna have the same answer. So we're gonna have 108.43. So 108.43. So all you have to do is to subtract, because this one is 39.055. So 39.055. Okay, yep, 8055 rather. So 39.8055 continuous. So when you subtract these two, you'll get the answer of this exactly. So what you do is just to subtract the smaller one from the bigger one. I usually don't like rounding off until the final answer. So yes, the answer of this is the same as this, but if we did not round off, if you don't round off, this is still gonna be 108.43 and stuff. So you just take exactly what this is minus this stuff. So when you subtract them, you'll have this exact angle. So let's find out what is that angle. Let's find out. So you should get 68.62. Yep, and that's the angle. So it's not hard to get this angle. In order to get this angle, you just have to get this angle of inclination and this angle of inclination and just subtract them. So it is easy. So we have 68.62. So 68.62. And let's deal with the last question, the area of POSC. So POSC, where is POSC? So POSC, where is S? Okay, SC. So they want this stuff. Let me just erase the unnecessary stuff. Alright, so they want the area of this stuff. So usually to find the area of any quadrilateral, you can simply split it into two triangles. And when you're split it into two triangles, you can simply get the area of this triangle and the area of the other triangle and add them together. So we're gonna split that into two triangles. So okay, find the area of this shape. Yep, I hope I picked the right one the first time. So it was POSC. Yep, this shape. So we have to split this stuff into two triangles. So we can split it like this, or we can split it like this, but my advice is to split it like this because we've got this angle. Why do we have to split it like that? Because we are gonna use the area rule. The area rule is easy to use to find the area of a triangle. For instance, if we've got this side and this angle, the area of this triangle is just, because the area rule says area is equals to half of one side times the other side times the sine of the angle that is between. So it's simply half of this side times this angle. The area rule is very easy to use. So we're gonna split it into two triangles like this so that we can easily find the area of this triangle. So the area of this triangle is gonna be half of this side times the sine of this angle. And the area of the other triangle will be very easy. They do it on purpose usually. Usually in this type of question, I check which triangle will have right angle. If you notice, this triangle has a right angle. Whenever it has a right angle, you can simply say half of the base times the perpendicular height. Or if you want, you can say half of this base times this height. So it's up to you. So let's split it into two triangles. So we have to get this distance. So do we have coordinates of P? No, we don't. That's what they gave us. They indirectly gave us. They told us it was the x-intercept. So we have the equation of this line. So okay, the x-intercept was 0. Let's say this is equation DC or CD. So that's why they ask us this stuff. So x-intercept was 0. So if we put 0, we're going to end up having minus 3x minus 9. And then this is going to end up being 3x is equals to negative 9. And then from here, we're going to divide both sides. So x would be negative 3. So it means it would be negative 3 is to 0. So we found it negative 3 is to 0. So this is negative 3 is to 0. So we can simply find the distance by using distance formula. And then we also have the coordinates of this stuff, so we can use distance formula. Let's use distance formula of this one first. So distance formula is equals to the square root of x2 minus x1. So x2 minus x1 plus squared rather, so let's not forget squared, y2 minus y1, so this is gonna be squared. So now we're gonna have d is equals to the square root of, so we're gonna have minus 3, this is gonna be minus 3 minus 2, and then that one is gonna be, we're gonna have negative 3 minus 0, so negative 3 minus 0 squared. Well, this we don't really need to waste our time. So this we don't really need to waste our time. We can simply type it in the calculator. Okay, so this is squared. So let's find out what will it be. So this is gonna be 1 squared, which is 1, and then we're gonna have plus 9. So this should be root 10. This should be root 10. I'm not using the calculator because let's see, minus 3 plus 2 is minus 1. Squared is just 1. And then plus, yep, it's definitely going to be square root of 10. So we found this distance as root 10. And then let's find this one. So we're going to have distance, and then this stuff we're going to have. So we're going to take this as x1 and x2. So it's going to be a 2 minus 0 squared, and then we're going to have plus minus 3 plus 4 over 3, or if you want we can just say minus 4 over 3 squared. Okay, this one definitely needs a calculator because it is in fractions. Let's figure out what this would be. So you should have square root of 61 over 3. So we found this part. This is the square root of 61 over 3. So we can use the error rule to find this portion, and then we'll find we'll use the normal formula to find that portion, then we add them together. So to find the area of these quadrilaterals is not difficult at all. So it's not difficult. So what you'll do is let's use the error rule, because we know that error rule says that area of any triangle is equals to half AB sine C. So let's just do one more example. So remember, whenever we've got an angle that is between two lines, if let's say this is 3, 4, 5, this is just an example, and then let's just say this was 60. If you were to find the area, you will just say half of, so you have to look at the angle. So the two lines that make the angle is this line and this line. So we will say half of those two, so half of 4 times 5 times sine 60. So yep, it's gonna be half of 4 times 5 times sine 60. So it's just half of this times the sine of that. So half of the two sides that make the angle, and then it's gonna be times the sine of the angle that is between those two lines. So it's gonna be half of this side, because we have an angle, so we look at this side and this side. So it's half of root 10 times root 61 over 3 times the sine of the angle, which is 68.62. Let me just verify. Yep, it's 68.62. So we just type this in the calculator, and the answer of that will be our area of this portion. Alright, so I'm gonna type the answer of this later. We need to add this to this stuff. So this is the right angle triangle. It's 90 degrees, because in the Cartesian plane is always 90 degrees. So we have 90 degrees, so it's half of the base. So whenever we can use distance formula for this, but we don't really need to use distance formula. We can see that this is at minus 3, so this is obviously 3 units. So the distance is 3 units, because this is minus 3. The coordinates of P is minus 3. Whenever a line is horizontal or vertical, it's easy to find the distance. And then this is a vertical line. It's gonna be minus 4 over 3. So it means the distance here is 4 over 3 units. So we're just gonna say plus half of the base. So the base, which is 3 times the perpendicular height, which is 4/3. And yeah, when we type this answer, that gives us the area of this stuff. And I don't think I need to type it. I believe you understand it. Yeah, so this is the last question. Yeah, so that is it. So if you enjoyed this video, please like my video and subscribe to my channel. Any video you want me to make or any question you have, please comment below and share this video as well.